Welcome to Derech Eretz with me, your host, Romy Stach. Sport has the inherent ability to unite people and cuts across the divide of race, religion and ethnicity. Former South African cricketer and field hockey player Mandy Yachad shares his experiences on the sporting field.
Sport is an amazing unifying method. I was very fortunate to play sport. I played mainly team sports. One of the main things that sports teaches one is to be dedicated. You have to have a goal, which is in your life. You need that, whether it's in religious life or other life. You need to know where you are, but you need to have goals to get there, and steps by which you want to get to a certain place. And sport certainly does that. It taught me that. It taught me dedication, that if you want to achieve, you have to have dedication. You can't expect just to get there by pitching up. Determination, you've got to be determined to reach a goal. And I was very dedicated in my sports career. I spent a lot of time training, and I think the people today are professional, so that's their job. But it also teaches how to get on with other people, especially in team sports where you've got to rely on other people. I played hockey and cricket, so it teaches you to get on with other people, to relate to other people, and to spend time with other people, to get to know them. So I think sport is an amazing learning curve for life. In my sporting career, I think I found that if I wanted to succeed, I really had to put in the effort and the time. I really loved my sport, so I think that was a big plus for me, that it wasn't a burden. And I think in life as well, in a job, whatever you're doing, if you enjoy it, it's much easier to do it. So I wasn't afraid to spend a lot of time training, running, whatever. So that taught me the determination and the dedication that was needed to succeed. I also had a burning ambition when I was young to represent my country. And I was fortunate enough to do so both in cricket and hockey. So I think that success breeds success. As I reached certain goals, I set my goals a little bit higher, and I was able, through dedication, determination, to reach those goals. So I think my sporting career did help me in life in general, in dealing with people, in dealing with situations. As a sportsman, you come across a lot of situations. As a captain of a cricket side, you have to make decisions, sometimes on the spot. And that's in work and in life generally, that you're confronted by certain circumstances and you need to make decisions. So I think the sporting environment helped me in my life generally. It helped me to meet friends with whom I've had lifelong relationships. Although I may not see them often, when I do see them, it's like, we've never been parted. So it's a life lesson. Sport is a life lesson. Everything in sport has something to add and to teach about life. So my family was exceptionally supportive of me in my sports career. One thing I did find, and this is advice that I would give to any parents, is that they never pushed me. They supported me, but they never pushed me. I saw a lot of parents who sort of lived their sporting careers through their children. They never made it, and they wanted their children to make it, so they pushed their children, and their children, or a lot of them, lost their zest for the sport. They lost their love. And that meant that after school, after university, they stopped playing. So my family was exceptionally supportive. My late mom was a sportswoman herself, so she sort of understood. But they never ever pushed me. They supported me by coming to watch, but they stayed in the background. They were never, they never went to speak to the selectors or the coaches or whatever. They were, as I say, supportive, and I appreciated it. And I think looking back, that's something that they taught me, and what I've always tried to instill in my children, and advice I've given to other people, is instill a love of the sport in your children. Don't push them and don't tell them to reach the highest levels. If they love the sport, they'll reach them there themselves. So the message I would give to any young person who wants to really achieve in sport is that they've got to have realistic goals. You can't be unrealistic. But once you set realistic goals, that you need to have a plan how to get there. And I won't say that you can achieve whatever you want to achieve, because I think that's unrealistic. But I think there is a lot of opportunity, and what I've seen in my sporting career is that talent is not everything. If you're prepared to put in the hard hours, the hard work, there's a good chance that if you have realistic goals, you'll be able to reach those goals. And never give up. You know, there are going to be setbacks along the way. There's setbacks in life. But you've got to overcome those. You've got to meet them head on and move forward.
Derech Eretz. Derech Eretz.
Brad Fischer, co-founder of the Soweto Canoe and Recreation Club, or SCARC, set out to uplift the youth of this historic township through the power of sport. Since its inception in 2003, SCARC has been producing some of South Africa's top up-and-coming paddlers.
I was myself a competitive paddler in my day. I paddled once for South Africa at the Denmark World Cup. And when I got back to South Africa, coming to the end of my competitive days, I thought I wanted to give something back. The canoeing had given me, beyond just the sport, it had given me a lot of benefit in life, and I felt that it could play a role in less privileged communities.
Soweto Canoe and Recreation Club is the only canoe club in Soweto. It's the only unique water sport in Soweto. So the kids fell in love because it is different from other sports. As young as 9 years old, we take the kids to train them how to swim. That makes us different, and that's what makes us people love us, because we welcome everyone.
The first thing we had to do was get all the kids into swimming, and we taught them all how to swim at the Power Park Dam. Then we got them onto the water, and we taught them what we call flat water proficiency, how to handle a boat, how to fall out of the boat, how to get back into a boat. From there we took them to the rivers, and we taught them how to paddle on rivers, and they then passed the river proficiency course. And over the years, the young paddlers from Soweto Canoe Club have now become the top paddlers in Gauteng. Soweto is now the strongest canoe club, both from a senior point of view and from a junior point of view.
Canoeing is the most enjoyable sport to me because I can swim, and there's a lot of fun here because it keeps me away from the street, something like that, and it takes me to a lot of places. I've traveled all these places. Yeah.
The challenges for someone from the Soweto Canoe Recreation Club making it to the top level compared to other people are first and foremost nutrition. So a kid that's eating the right food, it goes without saying the recovery is going to be better, the intensity that they can get up to in training is going to be better. So the first big challenge is nutrition, which fortunately we are able to by and large address through sponsors. But that's certainly something that is continually monitored and is a big disadvantage. The second disadvantage is transport. The races are on rivers all around Gauteng, even in Natal, and kids coming from highly impoverished backgrounds obviously haven't got access to transport. So we have to rely on sponsored vehicles to get the guys to the races, and even 2 vehicles of 14 seats, there's only 28 that can get on a rotation basis to the races. So you're now in a situation where, compared to a school where a kid could go to every race, we have to have some sort of rotation system.
I've become proud of myself that I'm different, and I found an alternative way of actually not getting into bad things like crime and drugs, like growing up in Soweto, looking at people who grew around me and stuff like that, because you always see them maybe in drugs and most of them maybe in jail and stuff like that. So it makes me feel proud of myself having joined the sports whereby you can get away with anything. I mean, if you are stressed, you can come to the water just to distress and stuff like that.
Khona isisho bekathanda ukusisho. Once idusi uyenza kayi-1, uzizwa ngathi ayikho into engakuhlula emhlabeni.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
That's like a machine. He's won 9 golds in the doozy. Next year I want to do the race. Maybe I can do it with you.
Just to illustrate the kind of focus and passion that Brad has is, there was one of the young SCARC members, Siseko, who teamed up with one of the older members of the Bulamanzi, Piers Cruikshank. And the two of them came from totally different worlds. But the two of them had one goal. They wanted to win a gold in the Dusi Canoe Marathon, probably the toughest canoe marathon there is in the world. And he made this beautiful, beautiful feature film made, which is about the relationship that develops between these two totally diverse individuals. And through getting to understand each other on the boat, through understanding each other on the water, how this relationship grows and it builds. And at the end of the movie, they achieve their goal, which is getting a gold at the Dusi Canoe Marathon.
The one thing the movie didn't show enough of was the second Fundini, just how long it actually took him. It was a more or less 8 to 10 year program before he got right to the top. And not an easy program, training twice a day, up to races like the Dusi for 6 months in advance. So the benefits for the kids in the program are beyond just the sport. It's the discipline and the goal-setting habit that the kids get into. It's also the sense of self-worth, doing something that they get good at, being praised for it, being recognized, the sense of recognition, which a lot of these guys from really impoverished and broken backgrounds don't have, guys and girls. And it was those facets, more than just the sport, that they benefit mostly from.
I've actually developed quite a lot. There are so many things that I have gained throughout the whole paddling initiative. When I came in here, I went on with my studies, and then at the same time I started working, and then from then I went on and then I started my own initiatives.
There's not big money in it, so it's not a career per se for these kids. Our emphasis is then therefore not on making them career paddlers. Even the top guys, our emphasis is on using the paddling as a platform to network, to develop their sense of self-worth and confidence, to get into some of the other programs that we've got, which is the extra lessons and the career guidance, job shadowing. So our emphasis is definitely not on building top paddlers, it's on building great people, and the paddling is a tool for that.
Me becoming one of the instructors started last year when we had our mini committee, and then that is when I started developing a passion for teaching and passing on my leadership skills that I learned here from SCARC, from Gosi, Tulani, Steve, and all the other people who are managing us. This year I applied to be a kayak instructor in one of the American summer camps, and I was an instructor at Deer Crossing Camp for the past 3 months in America.
It's a high admin sport. You've got to ensure that your equipment is 100% right. Obviously, from a personal point of view, you need to be fit, you need to be strong. You can't do a canoe race if you're not physically fit, and also mentally very, very strong and very in tune with yourself. When you're going down a river and you're faced with a huge rapid, you've got to take decisions very, very quickly. And you take that ownership. You've got to take control of that situation. And the decision you take, that's the decision you've got to stay with. And those are life skills that you can't really learn, you can't learn in any other sport.
Brad is a good man. And then he's a business guy as well. Is such an inspiration to me and most of the guys as well. We look up many things on him. He's a successful businessman, he's a sport guy, and he's also a humble person, and he's very good with other people.
So my Derech Eretz for the Soweto Canoe Club, SCARC, is that it should serve as an example to other clubs, not even in sport, cultural clubs, even religious associations, that they could also reach out to less fortunate organizations in their same interest group. Ours happen to be canoeing, and embrace them and pull them in, adopt them into their sport, into their world. And together the two clubs, I've seen it firsthand. The two clubs end up both benefiting out of the relationship, and it really would be really could make a big difference to South Africa and to the way people interact and understand one another.
Derech Eretz. Derech Eretz.
Former Springbok centre and wing Syd Nomis was well known for his speed and his big match temperament. This helped him set a record of 25 consecutive test matches for the Springboks between 1967 and 1972, which stood for almost 3 decades. He is considered to be one of the great Jewish rugby players of all time and was inducted into the International Jewish Sports Hall of Fame in 1999.
I think at the age of 6 or 7, I started becoming very aware, living on the farm in Uchis. My mother is Syd's sister, youngest sister. And I became aware of this very famous uncle that I had, who was a bit of a superstar in my own country. And I became fascinated by him, to the extent that I started researching him from a very young age, reading every book on every tour he went on. And I found out along the way that he was probably one of the most popular Springboks of all time as a man. His presence in the change room was valued, his presence on tours were valued. He was a very jovial, warm, encompassing man. People liked being around Syd Nomis.
Syd Nomis for me was an incredible personality. Obviously as a Springbok, as a South African born boy, there's nothing greater than the Springboks. And when I became a rabbi, I got to know a lot of his family. And Syd went from a sporting legend to an incredibly good friend, an incredible mentor in just the way he looked at life.
He was an absolute hero in the Jewish community. But it extended far beyond the community. He was on a national level. He was one of the greats.
There's some legendary stories about him. Let's not forget that he did score some of the most famous tries in Springbok history. If we go back to Paris in '68, he scored the famous crepe tree, the crawling try, where on a wet field in a cold day in Paris, the French were running the ball out of their own 22 and there was a tackle made and the ball went loose and he kicked it ahead and it landed behind the posts. And he was going to win the race there easily, but then he started, as he ran past the one Frenchman, he got hit in his head. And then when he hit the deck, he got cramps in both his hamstrings. So he had to crawl. And at the last second, he just got his hand on the ball. A very famous try. He loved his family. I mean, he loves his 2 daughters and his son, Joanne, Romy, and Gary, and his 5 grandchildren. They were his life. But he did love his nephews, particularly me, because he always used to say that I knew more about him than he knew about him, which is true. I really did. I knew every incident that ever happened in his life. And he was a wonderful uncle, because we all used to live on the farm, and he would come out, when he came out for a weekend at the farm, it was the biggest highlight of our life. And he'll give every nephew a Springbok jersey that he wore. In those days, you couldn't buy a Springbok jersey, a replica in a shop. So if you had a Springbok jersey, it was golden in those days.
Syd was a man of strong pride. He was very, very proud of being a Springbok, but very seldom did he ever talk about being a Springbok and not being Jewish at the same time. He absolutely loved Judaism. He often told stories of different fights he might have had on and off the field, of comments made to him for being a Jew. But he spoke about being a Springbok and a Jew almost on an equal front. He always spoke about being the Jewish Springbok as opposed to just being a Springbok. And again, he defended Judaism to the nth degree in every possible way that you can think of. That was who he was. Judaism was in his blood, it flowed in his blood, and he was happy for it to show.
In those days, to be an English Springbok, not speaking Afrikaans, was very tough. To be a Jewish English Springbok was extraordinarily tough. And I know there are 10 Jewish Springboks, which is amazing, and all really good players. And it's amazing that Syd Nomis is the most capped Jewish Springbok of all time. And that record of his I find fascinating. And our rugby player of the century, Frick de Preer, who was a great mate of Syd's, and South Africa's greatest ever rugby player, said at a talk after Syd's death at the Golden Lions Rugby Union, that he never even played 4 tests in a row, and Syd Nomis played 25 tests in a row.
So when Syd Nomis scored that fantastic first try at Loftus Versfeld against the 1970 All Blacks, and it was an interception try, which was always exciting and sudden, and you see this flash go through the middle between the New Zealand defenders and shoot through to the try line. And I remember specifically where we were. We were in our lounge in Virginia, listening to the radio, and we had this Afrikaans commentary, Gerard Verveers. And all of a sudden there was this Syddy. And my mother, who really didn't know much about rugby, didn't know much about sport in general, for the rest of her life, she would every now and again she would break out into a repetition of what she heard. Syddy. It was just such an exciting moment, made by Gerard Verveers. And in fact, as I understand it, Gerard Verveers, the Afrikaans commentator, always said to Syd Nomis, "You made me as a commentator." And Nomis said, "Well, you made me as a wing."
My father was watching the game. He fell down from the top stand of Loftus. Someone had to catch him from excitement. And that is one of the most famous tries in Springbok history. Don't forget that in the second test in Newlands in that year, 1970, he lost his teeth. The All Black fullback, Fergie McCormick, was not the most friendly or popular man, even amongst his own teammates. As Syd kicked the ball over his head and was running around him, stuck out the elbow, catching him here and knocking out 4 of his teeth. He was knocked out for a minute and a half. In this modern day and age, he's straight off the field. He stood up and carried on playing.
Syd inspired me in a few different ways. Number one, Syd was a person who was a leader. He was a leader in the Lions. He was a leader as a Springbok. He was a leader in the rugby fraternity. But he was a person who understood that he was on the level of everybody. He was never on a different level to people. And his greatness and the way he's able to relate to everybody around him and achieve the greatest he achieved was not because of what he achieved in his personal life, but the way he related to other people.
He made us proud to be part of our family. He made us proud to be his nephew. I mean, to the extent I still can't believe he's gone. I mean, I felt like half my soul had gone when he died. To a South African jury, what's his legacy? Dream and it can be done at the highest level. That's his legacy.
Syd was, in my way, central to Derech Eretz in all possible ways. In a sporting world, he understood to have respect for his coaches. He understood what was important in life, for his friends. He had this ability of finding his peers. He had absolute respect for them, the way they were. Walking into anywhere, he had Derech Eretz for every single person, respect, honor, care for everybody of every single aspect at every level and whoever they might have been in life. I found that electrifying when it came down to Syd.
Nine-time Olympic swimming champion Mark Spitz said, "If you fail to prepare, you're prepared to fail." If you have missed any of our previous shows, why not click onto our YouTube channel, Derech Eretz Connect, and watch some of our amazing stories. From me, Romy Stach, and the Derech Eretz team, remember that being a good sports person requires hard work and determination.